Hey, this is Gio with Strategic Edge Trading, and we are talking about the brand new user interface on the BW. So, we're going to give you like a whole fresh look at this thing. So, the BW now has two displays kind of overlaid in that same panel. And I've made the panel full screen here so we can kind of see it all nice and easy. We're going to get into the components of the lower one first. This one we call BW1. This is the OG BW. So this one has two zones that are marked off. You have the upper extreme here at the -20 value. You have the lower extreme down here at the -80 value. And the way that we utilize this is to track when the cloud enters and stays in those extremes for prolonged periods of time. Okay. This is kind of how we see where we're at in terms of trend exhaustion. Because if we are in a long move, like here, you see we're heading up. Once price reaches a certain point mathematically, the BW says, I think we are at the upper end of the expected range of a price move here. So anything that kind of goes beyond that and would stay up in the upper extreme would be moves where we're chopping higher and we're actually distributing contracts off if we're market makers. And eventually we'll see that, trend then reverse. So, opposite if you are down in the lower extremes, right? We've been in a bearish trend. Now the BW says, hey, this trend is just about tapped out. And then time spent down here for any sort of prolonged period of time would then be kind of considered accumulation as we're making lower lows. And the market makers are on the other side of those those candles where they're actually distributing off their shorts and they are accumulating longs, getting ready to move price the other direction. Okay, so that's how we're sort of looking at, you know, accumulation, distribution, and then these trend segments that kind of come in between. So that is the upper extreme, the lower extreme, and this is more or less what we'd expect to kind of move through cleanly. If we spent some time distributing off up here, I would expect to cleanly move through with a cloud that gets a nice big fatty delta there. Um, that's that's a clean trend move with a lot of sell pressure. Gonna go that way. Okay. Um, So we know what the extremes are marked out at. We know kind of what we're looking for price to hang out in those and clue us in that we're going to spring the other direction. Okay. Um, the actual formatting of it is a fast and slow line. So typically when the slow line becomes fully engulfed up there. Now I'm thinking, all right, we're in that distribution zone or we're in that accumulation zone. And then the distance between these is what I'm calling the delta, and that is more clearly pictured in the histogram up above. So this is BW2. So when we're looking at BW2, what we're actually looking at is here, when it's green, we have growing buy pressure, and when it breaks out of these yellow designated lines, so inside here is the chop zone. This is strong enough delta that I now believe that the overall momentum of the marketplace is bullish. When you see that big break like that, then you'll see the background will get painted a color. So here, delta was so strong that it made the overall directional bias of the BW short. Here, the cloud delta becomes big enough that we believe that the overall directional bias based on momentum is long. Okay. Now, when you see the green and red ones develop, that is saying that price flipped. So you had a pullback in price here, but when price crosses back, we expect it to then go on and it should make new highs. If it doesn't, that's somewhat problematic. We're now probably in a state of chop. Okay, so we're in chop. We don't really want to trade, and that's what this. And when you're going to look at this, going, well, you're always in chop. You're right. That's why we want to know that, because at the end of the day, you're almost always in a range. You're almost always in chop. That is the vast majority of the New York session. If we're just being honest. And those are the hard parts to navigate. So if we are in those chop periods, it definitely benefits me to know when to anticipate that we're going to go on and make a higher high. And that's what these things are kind of plotting to tell us, or that I'm going to go on to make a lower low. That's what these red plots are then telling us. Okay. And it's not a for sure thing. There are no promises, no guarantees. Just mathematically, we've observed it enough times that um, it becomes a safer bet. Okay. Um, so when we are utilizing the BW in conjunction with the Stratus engine, um, big thing that we want to make sure of is that our biases are aligned, right? So here you see price is, for the most part, respecting and staying underneath the um, high time frame cloud line, which would give us a bearish bias here. Here we get the perfect weather glow, but we actually don't have BW confluence until here, where the cloud delta has extended far enough for us to go, okay, that's a strong momentum push. Now, if you were to look and just go, oh, but we're already at the extreme, probably not safe to enter. What I'll tell you is that when you see the cloud delta that strong, um, it's a pretty safe bet. This is your strongest signal that the BW is going to throw you um, when the cloud delta gets to that, that magnitude, that the momentum shift has pretty much occurred. So here, even though we're entering down into the extreme, we should still be expecting for us to have periods of growing bearish cloud delta where we go on to make lower lows. So that's why you would then want to kind of toggle your eyes up to the histogram portion and just be mindful that, yeah, we're anticipating that we're going to have some chop during this run. And as you can see, price enters that Stratus engine cloud. And when we're inside the cloud, we know that price is choppy, right? But chop can still be directional. And this is telling us that if we respect the short bias of the higher time frame, the current run of price and momentum, we've got a good shot at going on to make lower lows, and that's what happens. Okay. Now, when you've been down in the extreme for a while and you see, um, these runs of chop. So typically on a trend day scenario, or even just when you have to stay down in that lower extreme to consolidate and get off your short positions and then rework your book long if you are an institutional trader, right? Because we're always trying to frame us retail traders, we contribute so little to the overall market. I think a lot of the times we get caught up in our heads like, oh, the market is doing this thing to me because it knows that I know you're a drop in the bucket. Okay. What we're really looking at and the narrative that we should be framing in our minds as we're utilizing these tools is looking at where and what the institutions have to be doing, right? So um, down here. we're gonna range in this storm cloud scenario for a while, chopping, making lower lows. You see here we anticipate a lower low. We anticipate a lower low. We anticipate a lower low. And we've done that, I like to say, at least three times. It can definitely be more, it can definitely be less. But my my usual, I'm tracking this, I'm looking for it to happen at least three times before I see the BW cloud fully enter into the range. And then I like to see it get that delta pop pretty soon. And then that usually is the confirmation that I need that we've got a run that can at least usually take me to the next magnet level. Um, Especially if I'm not in a scenario where I'm still counter the high time frame trend. Here, prices below. So overall high time frame trend still believed to be bearish. I would be leery. I'd be looking for more scalp opportunities when these aren't aligned. But after watching, like if you lived through this, like you watch this happen live, that's almost an hour and a half of just straight chop. Okay. So me personally, I'm not going to sit there and watch the entire time that that's happening. I'm checking back periodically and I'm looking for, how many times we've gone on to make lower lows or the delta push on our BW cloud pushed back down without us ever breaking out of this range. You see this storm cloud? Like we didn't exit it for an hour and a half. When we did, we exited on the short side, doing what? Sweeping all this liquidity that just got generated as we touched off this same spot three times, four times, one, two, three, four. Sweep it, go the other way. And what does that look like here in the BW? Accumulate, 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 accumulate. Last one. Okay, we're back in the range. So here you get a storm cloud kickoff. You get a little thing going, hey, maybe. Here you get your price glow saying it's probably a good idea. Here you get clear skies glow and delta confirmation from the BW that we're breaking out of the chop range. Well, hot diggity, I take that up to a magnet level for sure. Okay. And then here we consolidate, we come back down and sweep. And then we go on to make higher highs. So here, the momentum shifts. Here, the cloud down here flips. And that's pretty much timed exactly with this storm cloud kickoff. Here you get the confirmation that the delta is big enough for you to want to push to a magnet, and you sure could. And since you'd already played off of this one, you might be safe to even target the double stack of magnets above it, which definitely get touched off of as well. And then what happens up here? Tight consolidation, and here you get a bearish flip, which is contrary to your high time frame being bullish. So anytime that, those things aren't really aligned, I'm anticipating chop. Right? If I've got if my high time frame top-down analysis says I should be bullish, but my current momentum is bearish, well then what am I doing? Why am I focused on trying to force a potential trade entry? So I like for these things to be aligned for my highest probabilities. Um, and I like that to then align with my cloud and my price glow. And if I've got all of those things working in my favor and I've got a magnet level handy that I can use as a reasonable target, then I'm probably going to hit it. So that is what we're looking at on the new BW Momentum Oscillator. Trade well.